Hi everyone and welcome to our podcast Skincare and Beyond. I'm Julia, I'm one of the directors at Face the Future, and today I'm joined by somebody who truly doesn't need any introduction, but I'll give her one anyway. Millie Kendall O.B.E, Chief Executive Officer of the Beauty Council, and behind a lot of the shaping and initiatives and everything that's really affected our industry in the past 2-3 decades. So, Millie, welcome.
That makes me feel Millie on 2-3 decades.
Well, no, it's just you've got such an amazing career that I know we're going to tap into. And I'm really excited about this conversation because not only will we speak to Millie about her journey, we'll talk about the British Beauty Council as well, and also the future of beauty and skincare. So, Millie, I know that you've been involved with some of the most iconic brands, that you've been lobbying government, that you're a real champion of sustainability, and more recently, you've been tackling how we talk about sun safety. So if you can, and not be, still going challenges, absolutely. Yeah. If you can you just talk me through actually your career, how you actually decided to come into the beauty industry? Was there any particular moment or any particular person that cemented the idea that you wanted to work in beauty?
My dad's a hairdresser. So I would say I was kind of born into beauty. I spent most of my childhood sort of sitting underneath the chair, really, watching him cut hair, covered in hair as a child. And so when I left school prematurely, the obvious thing for me to do was go and learn to cut hair. And I just, my head and my hands don't connect. I'm not that amazing creative person that can I can see something and I can see how it should be shaped and how it should develop, but I can't get my hands to do the work.
Okay.
I've got a disconnect. After much trial and error, my dad ended up getting me a job working for a makeup brand called Shu Uemura. It was a Japanese makeup brand. And this was in America. And I worked for Shu. And sort of one thing led to another. I had a boss that quit and I ended up taking her job, and my career developed quite quickly at that time. I was probably in my late teens and I just loved makeup as a medium. There's something about, I love color. I loved playing with it, being able to put it on, take it off. I loved designing. Gave me a sort of artistic and creative outlet that wasn't as specific and didn't require the sort of training that hairdressing requires, because hairdressing is an incredible skill that almost requires you to understand geometry and shape, and that's not for me. Right. What I do understand is sort of perception and color. So I think sometimes you're just rigged a certain way. And obviously when you're working for a makeup brand, you have to understand skin's physiology. With Shu Uemura, we did sell skincare as well. Very, very early on, they had these sort of single essences. One was hyaluronic acid, one was elastin, and one was a collagen. And so despite the fact it wasn't a skincare brand, being a Japanese makeup brand meant that they were very, very, very well advanced with their skincare. I love all aspects of the beauty industry, really. Mr. Shu Uemura was a big mentor to me. My dad has always really mentored me. I've watched him. He's 78 now, and he's been cutting hair since he was probably about 13, 14.
Is he still cutting hair?
He's still cutting hair. Yeah, still cutting hair. And he won't let go of those scissors. And I've always liked this sort of environment. I think it's a really nice industry to work in. There's an element of science, there's an element of creativity, entrepreneurialism, just kind-hearted, good people. Yeah. And I think that not all industries are full of really good people. Yes. And I don't think I've ever met somebody in our industry who isn't a good person.
No, I agree. I think I've only been in the industry 5 years, but I absolutely love it because everybody is so helpful.
Yeah.
I came into the industry not knowing anything, and actually it didn't bother me because there was always somebody that could go and talk to and that was willing to help. And you're right. Yeah. You don't get that in every industry.
No, I think, if you're in like financial services or accountancy or some of those other industries, they could be quite cutthroat. I think generally, and I've noticed this since we started the council, bringing brands together to collaborate is actually, it was slightly harder in the beginning than I expected. But once they're in the room, They're really happy to collaborate. And I think that that's really critical to everything that we do is collaboration. So,
Absolutely.
And also, if you're a makeup artist on set, on a shoot, you're working with a hairdresser, possibly a nail tech, a stylist, a photographer, runners, lighting people. Yeah. All of that, if you're working in a salon, you've got the receptionist and the shampoo girl and the colorist and then the hairdresser. And then, you know, generally across our industry, we're collaborators. That's what we do.
Yeah.
And I think that I get a lot of enjoyment out of that.
Brilliant. So you mentioned Shu, but I know that you've worked with some amazing, iconic brands.
Yeah.
Is there any that actually cemented some turning points in your career?
Oh, God. So, I mean, you know, I launched Shu Uemura, then I worked with Aveda, Horst Rechelbacher, who was a genius behind Aveda, which was the first of its kind. It was an Ayurvedic aromatherapy brand. Tweezerman, Del Mayo from Tweezerman, amazing windsurfer from Seattle. Tweezerman, I mean, it's just such an amazing, iconic brand, isn't it? You've got to have one of those on every desk if you were. L'Occitane, another brand that I've absolutely loved, worked with Ronald Gija and Kit Braden when they launched L'Occitane. I worked with Boots for many years. Boots invested £7 million in a brand that had my name on it called Ruby and Millie.
Yes.
And Ruby is still the most amazing person I've ever met. And yeah, lovely and godmother of my child. And that was an amazing. If you think back to mid-90s, having someone invest £7 million in me. Now I look back, I think, wow, that was crazy. But I don't know necessarily if I sort of realised how awesome that was back then.
Yeah. You come across to me as somebody who just takes things in your stride.
Yeah, I try not to sort of, I'm always looking forward, so I don't often look back. And so I kind of just keep going. And then sometimes when you do stop and reflect on it, usually when I'm on holiday, and I think, wow, that was quite amazing.
Yeah.
But I just think, I just keep moving forward. I just really like kind of the pace.
Yes. As you say, you work with a lot of amazing brands. You've created, amazing.
Great.
Yeah, you did. Yeah. What is it then about you personally, in terms of your own personal values or belief, that I suppose help you make your career decisions?
I think the sort of the bigger ideas are justice and social equality. Like I think in terms of like the sort of big picture ideas, I want everyone to have the same benefits and and opportunities. So that's one part of it. In terms of like within the industry, some people say I've got sort of an anti-beauty look or something. I don't know. But I just think I've got a sort of certain aesthetic that I sort of find quite appealing. And I think that sometimes it feels or comes across as a little bit maybe anti-beauty. That's not. I just find that my definition of beauty is really confidence. And so I want generally women up and down the country and men to feel beautiful because there is an innate confidence that they love themselves and that there's a confidence and I don't necessarily think that's always about product, but I think that particularly with skincare, if skincare can benefit your skin and make you feel more confident when you wake up in the morning and look in the mirror, I've done my job properly. Yeah. So I think what propels me is a combination of a desire to make everyone in the country look beautiful because they feel confident, or feel beautiful because they feel confident. And also that whole sort of thing about, equal opportunity and social justice. I don't know. It's sort of like a combination of all of those things.
Perfect. But anybody think that I'd prepped you about this, the Future's Beauty Go on Time campaign, but I haven't.
I had no idea.
So that's all about confidence at any stage in your life. And actually,
And I think as you get older, like I'm 58, I think I'm much more confident now than I was when I was younger. Way more confident. I think I was probably far less confident maybe in my 20s in terms of how I look. You do get used to how you look.
Yes.
And you do start to really love the way you look. I just wish that started a little bit sooner because what worries me is with things like aesthetics, people are changing the way they look at a really young age and they're not allowing themselves to build the confidence and develop their love for the way they look. Yeah. And I sort of, I find a little bit frustrating.
I definitely agree it is an age then. I think you have a lot more insecurities when you're younger compared to when you get older. And I don't know whether that's because actually you value physical aesthetics less as you get older, and as you say, it's the other qualities, it's the confidence, it's the self-assurance, it's those things that you value more as you get older.
But also young people, I mean, I'm not a digital native, so, I've had to adopt and adapt to it, but digital natives are like that, with a phone literally right up in their face. And obviously we noticed during COVID with Zoom how often we had to look at ourselves. And there's a lot of young people that spend a majority of their day looking at themselves in a slightly distorted fashion, to be honest. And so I think there's a lot of work to be done. I tend to sort of like the sort of slightly deeper, challenging topics around beauty.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not in it just for the sake of a bit of, to me, it's not fluffy and frivolous. Yeah. It's actually a really historical, anthropological part of who we are. I find that really interesting. And so when it comes to sort of what continues to drive me, it's looking at that and where we've gone wrong and what we do right and how that can impact the future. And so I kind of like try to look at it from a more academic approach, despite that I am no academic. I'll be really honest, I'm not. I left school at 15, but I do find that quite interesting. And I think that's kept my attention for a long time.
Yeah. Well, that leads us really well into talking about the British Beauty Council, because obviously the beauty industry within the UK makes such a significant contribution that isn't always recognised.
Very rarely.
Yes. So before we talk about that and the political landscape and all of those, just talk me through the British Beauty Council. It's such a powerful voice for our industry, but actually, what made you decide that you wanted to launch something like the British Beauty Council? And what did those early days look like? Because is it 2008?
No, 2018.
18.
Yeah, not even that old. Yeah, 7 years old. So around 2012, 2013, I'd gone out for dinner with some friends, all worked in the beauty industry in different areas of the beauty. Someone was a buyer, one was in comms, one was a makeup artist, one was a brand owner, and one was a journalist. We all went out for dinner and we talked about setting up something like this. We had a few drinks. It was at the Electric in Notting Hill, which is a sort of a restaurant in Notting Hill Gate. And we all went home. I'd had a few drinks. So I tried to register a trademark, the BBC, which obviously is already in. So that got declined. And a friend of mine registered the URL, the website URL, british.beautycouncil.com. And we agreed that we were going to meet up every month and we were going to get this thing off the ground. And, 6 years later, nothing had happened. Okay. And Donald Trump was elected. The country chose to Brexit. I didn't agree with either one of those things. I thought they were both absolutely detrimental to my industry, my friends' businesses, my children's future. And I just was on my knees, just like, I didn't go sob that hard in years. And at the same time, David Bowie died, Prince died, and then later that year, George Michael died. And it was like, the world is coming to an end. He's awful. And my brother's a social worker, lives in Portland, Oregon. And he had said to me, don't be one of those people that posts about your political views on Facebook. That's really boring. It's like a sort of microcosm. You're talking, it's an echo chamber. You're talking to yourself. Because anybody that is a friend of mine that is probably on my Facebook or whatever it was at the time is probably thinking the same thing. So you're not really getting your point across. Yes. And he said, if you want to make a difference, do something about it. And I've always had that sort of underlying sort of social justice kind of warrior kind of personality. And so I decided to do it. And I was really encouraged by two very close friends of mine, Kate Shapland and Anna Marie Solovey. Anna was a beauty director at Vogue. And Kate owns a brand called Legology, which is an amazing brand dedicated to leg care. And they said, if one of us is going to do it, it's going to be you. You're the one because I'm very much a doer, not a thinker. Like, I get stuff done. I was introduced by Anna to a woman called Jane Boardman, who had owned a comms agency. And she'd been at the Fashion Council and she really understood what needed to be done. So I went to go see Caroline Marsh, who was the CEO of the British Fashion Council. And I said, I want to do something exactly in the same sort of format that you've done it. Yeah. Learning from your 30 years of, experience, or she'd actually not been there 30 years, but the Fashion Council, had really made its mark over the past 3 decades. And and they helped me to set it up. So it takes a village. Certainly wasn't, on my own. And I have one person working for me who was somebody who'd worked for me before, Diana Ireland. It was her and I in an office, just taking on the world. We had 10 founding patrons who all kind of put their trust in us to develop this sort of roadmap with these pillars of work we were going to do. And we looked at the sort of macro challenges that the industry faces: DEI, sustainability, reputation, really defining what our social and cultural contribution is, export. Obviously, export is important for us as an industry. Manufacturing, sourcing material. I mean, there were so many big challenges. So we investment in innovation. God, I could keep rattling them off. But so we basically developed a roadmap with pillars to support what we were going to tackle. When I say macro challenges, it probably won't even be that we've tackled them in my tenure. You know, I've been here 7 years. It might be that all happens after I'm gone. But there were some sort of wins, I think, along the way. And, you know, I've learned over the past few years, we're now in our third roadmap. So every roadmap is 3 years. So we're now at the beginning of our third roadmap, being the 7th year. And I've learned that there are some small wins, there are some bigger wins, but the bigger wins take a lot of time.
Yes.
And, you know, the goal was to really go to government and say, this is the value of our industry. This is what we're worth. This is why you should talk to us. And so we defined the industry, then we took the definition, gave it to Oxford Economics, who then produced the value of beauty. And it was almost 30 billion pre-COVID. We've now superseded that, and we are now 32.4 billion pounds in consumer spending and 30.4 contribution to GDP. And I don't know, I felt like it was going to be harder, but I'm like framed a narrative around, you know, we're an industry that's great for social mobility. We're an industry with 86% of our businesses are female owned. Our contribution is almost 28.4, I think it was back then, 28.4 billion, which pays for, you know, pretty much all of the nurses in the UK, you know, so the cost of their salaries. We talked about our contribution to the exchequer. And so we kind of like framed a narrative. I guess because I come from sort of like a comms-ish background, it felt like I was doing comms for the whole industry.
Yeah.
And it just felt really natural to me. And I like politics. And I know that when I walk into a room with politicians, I know more about our industry than they do.
Yeah.
Therefore, I'm in a very fortunate, confident position. I think if you walk into an environment like that and you're not confident about what you're talking about, then it's probably not as effective.
Yeah.
But I'm supremely confident about our industry. I've worked in it my entire life. And I know the challenges, and I know the benefits, and I know what we deliver to society. Yeah. You walk down any high street and you will see multiple hair salons, barber shops, nail salons, beauty salons. They're holding up the high street. They're the sort of heartbeat of the community in towns and villages across the country. And, you know, it was a way of sharing that with government. And now sort of, you know, we're thoroughly embedded. Yeah, it's difficult with the government, changing government, but, you know, we did it before and we've now done it again. So it's about building relationships with people.
Yeah. I think we're a really complex industry, and therefore having influence in such a complex industry is difficult. Yeah. But the British Beauty Council yourself has done that. And you talked about, you know, the value of beauty and the academic side of it that you brought to it. I don't think until the British Beauty Council came along and we actually looked at the figures and you've got the reports that anybody really understood the true value of the industry. Yeah. And actually having all that information, as you say, to back up why it's so important is really useful.
You have to make that information simple as well, because the thing is that there might have been some organisations that knew, but no one, or like, you know, Mintel and a lot of organisations, but you have to have, with government particularly, you have to have really solid data. Yeah. And Oxford Economics, we chose them because they work with government already, and they did loads of research and reporting for government. And so you have to have really solid data, and then you have to simplify it. Yeah. In this day and age, everything has to be a bit of a soundbite, you know. And I think that was important. I'm really grateful you said that, because it is sometimes I forget. You know, you don't reflect on it. For me, I feel like I've been doing this for my entire life. So I forget sometimes the impact it's made in such a short space of time. So when you said 2008, it could have been 1998 because 2018 wasn't that long ago.
No, it wasn't.
So, and it feels like it's literally a lifetime. Maybe everything that preceded it was working towards us. I don't know. Yeah.
And you have achieved so much. Is there anything that stands out as some of your proudest moments for the British Beauty Council then?
God, so many. I mean, British Beauty Week has snowballed every year in January. So I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it because it eats up September and October. But that's just snowballed. I think we had our reach was 52 million last year, which is amazing. So British Beauty Week, really amazing. The ban on aesthetics for under 18s, that was huge. And I think we're sort of going through a consultation process again with government on aesthetics. So just highlighting that is a horse that's bolted from the barn. It needs to be slightly put back in. That's quite important.
You can go anywhere sometimes to get it.
Exactly. We managed to get the hairdressing and skincare education training curriculum updated to include afro and textured hair and all skin tones. Unfortunately, there's been a challenge with getting those occupation standards into colleges. So that's the next thing that we're tackling. So I've got a meeting later on that. But just to say that racial equality across our industry is really important. I was horrified when we first started the British Beauty Council to find out that afro and textured hair wasn't included as mandatory in hairdressing training. And it was an additional module that you had to pay for, which was just astonishing to me. So those kind of things I'm really proud of. Nothing's, I would say with all of those things, nothing's perfect. And a lot of times they're a work in progress, but it's like stepping stones. You sort of building towards the right eventuality. Oh God, we had the chance to speak at British Beauty Week in 2021. That was pretty amazing. I've been invited to Labour had their first business event at Number 10 a couple of days after they got into power, and I was invited, and I was one of 5 women in the room. It was quite amazing.
Do you feel proud at the time?
You forget because you're so on message. I mean, we had a CEO roundtable at Number 10 hosted by Keir's team last year, which was amazing. And I walked into a room. We did a campaign last year, which was basically a campaign to allow us to do a census on our industry so we could get some real data on ethnic minorities, ethnic diversity, neurodiversity, physical disabilities and visible differences. And so we did this big census, and to front it, we did a campaign where we photographed all of our DEI committee, and the campaign is called A Beauty Industry That Looks Like You.
I've seen the campaign.
Yeah, and it was really effective. We had great, JC&Co were amazing. They gave us loads of free advertising on bus stops and in train stations. It was incredible. And I walked into Number 10, into the state dining room, and at the end was a big TV screen with the image of all of our DEI committee and I think it said A Beauty Industry That Looks Like You. And we were hosting CEOs from across the industry. And that really got me, because I just thought, well, I just walked into Number 10 Downing Street and there are all of my DEI committee and this big sort of screen at the end of the state dining room. That doesn't happen every day. No. And I can't even share that picture because we're not allowed to share that picture. But I have one picture of that room, with that massive dining room table with that image at the end of it. That will always be a very, very proud moment.
Yeah, absolutely. It can't always have been easy. There must have been some quite difficult times in, the British Beauty Council and the work that you've been done. Was there any points when you thought, I don't know if I can do this?
No, every day.
Every day. And what helped you continue the journey? Because as you say, it has made a massive difference, not just for the people that work in the industry, but also the consumers of people that are in the industry.
Yeah. I guess because it's my vision, I'm the founder, so I'm kind of quite clear about it. I mean, I'll tell you what it is that I was saying this to somebody, one of the team yesterday. We went on a trip up to Oxford, and on the way back, I was explaining to her that I'm normally very good in startup mode. I'm not a very good scale-up person.
Oh.
I'm really good at starting something and creating something. And I pride myself on being able to create something that, whether it succeeds or not, it was the first of its kind, right? So that's my sort of takeaway in life, that I feel like if I can pioneer something, I'm kind of okay with it. What happens to it after I'm gone, I really don't care. It's a weird kind of, I don't know. I've done my bit.
Yes.
And I'm very clear that I'm not normally good at scale up. The difference with this is, first of all, I've got an amazing board of directors that help with the scale up phase, and they're really amazing. But the reason I've been here for 7 years and not 2 or 3, which would normally be my sort of go-to kind of timeline, is because it's what we do and the pace of what we do is alongside politics. And because politics is so in flux all the time and changing every single day, it really keeps me on my toes. If I was the CEO of a brand, I'd have to be developing and constantly creating that change and that flux and that movement. And I don't think I've got the capacity to do that. I feel like, and it's a lot harder, actually. I feel like I'm constantly receiving excitement and something tangible to sort of navigate around. Yeah. So Trump will say, we're going to impose these tariffs. I'm like, okay, what are we going to do about it? You know, it's like I can find a solution around this. You don't get that with a brand. Yeah. You have to constantly create a story. Yeah. This is almost like a reaction. It's a reaction, and then I can create a story around it. So I think it's just the pace of politics suits my personality. Yes. And like I said, I've always liked politics on a sort of as an observer. So to kind of be involved in the sort of ebbs and flows of what's going on, I just think suits my personality, really. And the fact that I can bring the two things I love the most together, I mean, God, it's like the perfect job.
Yeah.
So it is that keeps me going. Yeah. It's not that I found the sort of the will to do it.
So you love a challenge.
I love a challenge. I love to find a solution to a problem. And I think that's what's kept me going. But then, my God, there have been some challenges. I mean, in the beginning, I got trolled quite a lot. Like, you know, so I came off Twitter. There was quite a lot of trolling about what we were doing. And that, even if you are the most robust person in the world, I know some amazing influencers or content creators who are very good friends of mine who look like they just bat it all away. It still affects you.
Of course it does.
Yeah, it's horrible. I mean, I had someone say some awful things to me. I mean, you know, with no knowledge and all of it completely ridiculous and stupid when you look back on it. But the fact is it was said at the time. And it was personal. The attacks were really personal.
It's a reflection on them, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, I did call up a couple of my friends that are content creators and I said, what do I do? And they're like, mate, don't worry about it. You know, it was very much like I needed to reach out to people I knew.
It's easier said than done, isn't it? Not letting it affect you, though.
Yeah, because I think when you've got a job like this, it's sort of you're accidentally at the front of something. It's not that you're fronting, you know, not a brand with my name on it anymore. I've done that bit before, luckily sort of pre-social media. But yeah, it's you're identifiable. And with this, it was an accidental. It wasn't that I wanted to be. I was sort of the natural candidate to be, but he hasn't that. I was like, one day I'm going to have an organization. I'm going to be at the helm of him. It's all going to be, you know, that wasn't an intent. There was no intent there. No. So,
but the good hopefully is outweighed some of the difficult.
Oh, yes. Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, sometimes those things are challenging and you kind of think, okay, maybe I did get that wrong. You know, sometimes you have to reflect on the criticism.
Yeah, absolutely. And learn from it.
Yeah.
So one of the things that you're tackling at the moment that is really close to Face the Future's heart is sun safety.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
It's such an important message, isn't it? Yeah. So for those listeners that don't know about the work that you're doing around the UV Safety Initiative, can you tell us a little bit about that why the British Beauty Council are championing that?
Yes, so we are the secretariat of an APPG. An APPG is an all-party political group. Why that's so effective is that it pulls MPs from across the political spectrum together to focus on particular certain issues. And with this, it's around UV safety. We say UV safety because underneath the sort of banner of this, there are different elements. So they can be removing the VAT from sun protection products, so it isn't just a socioeconomic privilege.
Yeah.
So if you're rich, you can afford it, and if you're poor, you can't, because we can't allow exposure to the sun to be financially driven choice. I mean, that is just insane to me. That's like saying you can only buy tampons if you've got money. You know, that just it's a stupid thing, really. It should be available to everyone. There's also things around maybe some kind of awareness around UV sunbeds, UV machinery, anything that's involved around that. I think that's quite important. Absolutely. Anything where you're exposed to UV, there should be education training around what that exposure brings and delivers and how dangerous that could be. And I don't think there's enough. So we asked the APPG as a secretariat to look at an inquiry. So it's a parliamentary inquiry. The parliamentarians hold sessions. They invite people to give evidence across a different few topics. So, for example, one of the next inquiries may be around health economy. So the economics of if more people used SPF and it was clearer what that SPF did and the levels that they should be using, what would be the economic benefit to the NHS? How would we save money for the NHS? So we're sort of looking at it from a couple of different directions, if that makes sense. So we've had some first-hand evidence, so people with melanoma or survivors of skin cancer talking about their experience. We're looking at economic challenges. And so that process will go on until I think around October. And during that time and after that time, we've got somebody writing a report. And that report will then be presented with recommendations from Parliament. So it's not, so although we're sort of slightly behind it, it is the APPG's recommendations, which obviously has more validity than it be, Millie's recommendations. And then those parliamentary recommendations, some might be proposed for legislation. So it might be that then the VAT, removal of VAT goes through some legislative process, or it might be that it's recommendations for industry. I would imagine it's probably a combination of both. So there'll be some recommendations for us, and there'll be, I mean, you would like to see, I think, a more consistent approach to SPF, how it's sold, what the claims are. There's a lot of regulation around SPF. So, and especially in the UK, we hold the gold standard in terms of cosmetic regs. But I do think the barrier to entry is a big problem. And also just education. I mean, I think kids should be taught how to put SPF on at very young school age. Absolutely. I know that the teachers can't put it on them. No. But, I don't think they should be allowed to go out and playground.
I think that, we've been talking about UV safety, sun safety for quite a while. And I do think that awareness has increased, but there's still so many misconceptions out there. And there's still so many things for us to tackle. And it still shocks me every time I think or hear about the fact that we have more skin cancer cases in the UK than they do somewhere like Australia. Why do you think it's taking so long for the UK to catch on?
Well, I think we just think, it's rainy all the time, and therefore we don't need it.
The education piece.
I think a big piece is education. I think that the majority of people don't need it. I went to a cricket match on Saturday, and it was a women's cricket match, and I've been talking to them about, there's a lot of beauty brands sponsoring female sport at the moment. I don't know if you see, like Estee Lauder sponsored Man United, women, so there's a lot of collaborations going on. You go to a cricket match, a men's cricket match, if you stand outside the gates as they're leaving, they are all completely red-faced. I don't know whether it's a combination of alcohol and sun or just sun, but generally speaking, those men don't wear sunscreen. And it's astonishing when you see them all come out, all very sort of pale English men with bright red burnt faces around the sun watching cricket for 6 hours, 8 hours, or whatever it might be. I think there's just a lack of awareness.
Absolutely.
I think it's a climate we live in. They just, it's just thought that, I mean, I don't know about you, but I mean, given the past few weeks of summer we've had, and, okay, today it looks like it's over. I think the climate's only going to heat up, and we're going to need to be much more careful than we've been.
Yeah. So, Millie, you've just talked about the cricket and the fact that people have been sat there for hours, came out bright red. Could be the alcohol, but we'll probably think it's the sun. Face the Future actually attended a couple of cricket events earlier this year and last year, and also attended Leeds Marathon, where we gave out SPF samples. And our team also talked to the people that were there. And it still surprised me how many people actually know they're going to be out all day and don't apply any SPF.
So they don't know how much to apply, because they really, I'm astonished.
Yeah. And reapplying it.
Yeah.
So you talked about the work that you're doing in terms of trying to, aid the government in coming up with solutions and how we can improve UV safety. For our listeners, whether they're in the industry or they're not, is there a particular call to action? Is there anything that you would like people to do to support the UV safety campaign?
Well, I mean, first of all, wear more SPF. That's the one. There is on the APPG website, which hopefully maybe you can put a link into that.
Absolutely.
There is you can submit a written consultation.
Yes.
So if you do have a specific opinion or you have real life experience, I would suggest that you submit a consultation or a submission to the consultation. I think the more voices that are heard on this topic, the better. And that is whether you are a consumer or someone that's working in the industry. So if you can't find the APPG website, there is a link on the policy pages of the British Beauty Council website, which is just britishbeautycouncil.com.
Talking about SPF and safety, we asked you a question before we recorded the podcast that you could ask our audience. Can you remember what?
I can't remember what the question was.
Sorry, don't worry. That's fine.
It feels like that was a lifetime ago.
It was weeks ago. So the question that you asked us was, what would you pay for a product that you only had to apply once that gave you sun protection all day? We had loads and loads of responses to it. And actually, I find it quite fascinating from, we're a skincare retailer. I found the answers fascinating. So the lowest amount started at around £15 to £20.
Okay.
But it was only a tiny amount of people that said that. The majority clustered much higher, between £50 to £100, with actually most people saying that they'd pay £80 to £90 for this.
Yeah.
I found that really interesting because actually it shows that consumers will pay for products when it's associated and positioned as premium, convenient and effective.
That's so interesting because that adds so much value to what we're doing in terms of the level of importance that sun protection plays in beauty purchases. Just to think about, when you think about what you could do with £80 to £100, and then somebody will pay that to make sure that they are completely protected all day long. That's amazing. That's amazing, actually.
Yeah. I found it fascinating because I did expect it to be lower.
Yeah, I wouldn't have expected it to be nearly that high. I would maybe have said £40 top, £30-40 top.
Yeah. It just shows people are willing to pay for something if it's effective.
Yeah.
I feel protected.
Yeah, that's really great. Wow, that's really good news. Thank you.
That's okay. Let's talk about the future.
Okay.
So you're often at the forefront of what's happening next. Is there any emerging trends, anything that you think that we need to keep our eye out, or that you're really excited about that's going to be happening in the next couple of years?
Yeah, I mean, I think our whole theme this year for and for the roadmap really is a future of beauty. So we're looking at all kinds of things from AI technology, longevity, which is a really amazing buzzword that's sort of going around. Might change its name, who knows? But at the moment, it's called longevity, which is sort of trend in terms of sort of inner and outer beauty. SPF, sun protection, obviously, is part of that, which is very important. One of the most exciting things I think falls into the sustainability camp. There's things that are sort of, there's work happening to look at reducing plastic, where our reliance as an industry on plastic is astonishingly high, and it really needs to stop. So there are some amazing innovators that are looking at some different materials that can replace plastic, but also biotechnology. So the development of ingredients that are sort of lab-based. You know, like you would get like a lab-created diamond.
Yes.
So then they're not mining for them. However much you like it or not, that our ingredients come from plants. And I do like that because I'm a little bit of a hippie and I like a bit of a plant-based product. There are also potential options in terms of biotechnology for manufacturing and mimicking ingredients in a lab. And I think that's very exciting because I think that as the planet warms up, our supply chain in terms of our reliance on plants will diminish slightly. Not to scare everyone, but so I think those are things that I think are quite interesting. And also how AI and that kind of biotechnology can really help us to be more sustainable. I think we shouldn't look at it as a sort of scary beast. We should look at it as a way of maybe reducing our reliance on certain things.
Absolutely. Well, when you talk about AI and biotech, it was buzzwords not so long ago, but now actually it's having a big impact on not just our industry, but all industries. Excited to see.
And also, I think AI is great for supply chain. You know, if you could use AI to make sure that your supply chain is completely clean and that, you know, the people that are growing your goods and that are making it and sending them to you and all of that is done with a sort of element of sustainability and an environmental approach to it, that makes for a better end product, to me anyway.
Yeah.
So I think there are some real benefits around, AI technology, biotech. I just think it's really exciting. And I like the longevity piece personally. I did a couple of Christmases ago, I did a 3-day IV injection and course of IV injections. I was terribly ill afterwards for about 2 months. But it changed my life after that. It was quite amazing. The energy levels, the sort of the wellness, like how well I felt afterwards. Wow. But I mean, I really did feel ill for about 2 months because I think my body just went into shock. It never been that clean before. It was like everything was coming out. And but after the sort of 2 months of being sort of consistently unwell, all of a sudden, it was like I felt like I'd been renewed.
Wow,
it's kind of astonishing. Yeah.
So the message there is for embracing things, isn't it, really?
I think you ought to try again. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I think we mustn't be scared of those sort of the future. I think we mustn't be scared of it. I think we should embrace it.
Yeah. Absolutely.
In a managed way.
Yes. You don't know. Well, try it.
Yeah, exactly.
Try things and see the positives and how it can help you in your industry, your job, where you like, rather than thinking actually it's this big scary thing that it doesn't need to be.
Yeah.
So, Millie, you've talked about a lot of things that you've been involved in and all the amazing things that you've done and contributed. There'll be some of our listeners that are thinking, I want to go into the beauty industry. I want to make a lasting impact. Is there any pearls of wisdom or advice that you can give somebody that wants to make that lasting impact in the industry?
I think I listened to this particular podcaster called Professor Scott Galloway, and he said something that was really interesting. A lot of times people say follow your passion, but I think you have to follow your talent. He talks about talent. And I think recognizing one's talent can take quite a long time. Like I didn't realize that what I needed to sustain a career for so long would be that sort of political pace. And, I think it's important to recognize your talents and to act on that. I think if you solely go for passion, I think it's slightly unsustainable. So I think recognizing your talent, I think, is really important.
Yeah, I think you're right. I used to work in the HR industry, and we always talked about people's development needs, and you'd spend 95% of your time on people's development needs as opposed to their strengths.
Yeah,
and really looking at people's strengths and maximizing those. So that's a large what.
Yeah. No,
it's about people's talents as opposed to the little things.
It's really
massive difference.
It's really hard to recognize your own talents, but I think you lobby a few friends, you get them to sort of set 12 friends and ask them all, where do you think my talents lie? Find where your strengths are and really work to your strengths. It might be that you really love makeup, but you might be a very talented cosmetic scientist. I mean, it doesn't look for where your talents lie.
Yes.
Are you a good numbers person? Are you a good, do you work really well with your hands? It took me a while, like a lot of like walking into walls to kind of figure out where I should go. And I'd like to see as part of my legacy, creating a slightly clearer career path for people coming into the industry based on what their talents are, and sort of so that there are sort of pathways to careers, rather than what I did, which was, like I said, walking into walls and kind of making a lot of mistakes and accidents and not kind of trying to figure out where I sat. It took me till I was in my mid-50s to figure that out. And I don't think everyone's got that kind of time to waste.
So absolutely. And other industries have career pathways. So in ours,
we just don't have that clear career pathways. So it's definitely something we're working on at the moment as a council, looking at the right qualifications and pathways for people. So,
and what about you personally? Is there anything left on that bucket list that you want to tick off?
I've done Wimbledon men's final. I've done the Cricket World Cup. I don't know. I don't really think like that necessarily on a personal scale.
Work.
Yeah, I mean, predominantly work focused. I mean, I have always been like a bit of a workaholic. I mean, I do switch off at the weekends. I'm not completely like, I mean, everyone knows the minute Friday comes around, I take the weekends seriously.
Good.
But I do get that balance because I desperately need it. I mean, and when I work 4 days a week, I work 4 days. Again, I work from like, I'm in the office at 8 and I don't get home till 10. Yeah. I do reasonably long hours. Maybe that's not that long, but anyway, it feels quite long sometimes.
Yeah.
But I do quite long hours. God, I guess on my bucket list, I'd like to host my own podcast.
Would you?
Yeah, I really would. I think that's something that I'd really like to do. But weirdly, I don't know if I want it to be about the beauty industry.
Oh, okay.
I'd like it to be a bit sort of more about other people. I'm quite interested in other people and what they bring to their own industry. So I'd like to do something like that.
I've definitely listened to something like that. It's good. Yeah, I love people.
Yeah.
So finally then, and no pressure here, if you were going to describe the beauty industry in 3 words, can you think of 3 words to describe the industry?
I mean, immediately, I just think confident, beautiful, successful.
God bless. We've got our T-shirt smoking, right?
Yeah.
We have that. Oh, well, but thank you, Millie. I mean, I found the conversation absolutely fascinating. Your mix of experience, logic, future planning is just amazing to listen to. And I'm sure that our listeners will take a lot away from that. The only thing left for me to say is thank you for listening. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please remember to like and share. And that's bye from me from now. But remember to wear your SPF every day. Thanks and see you next time at Skincare and Beyond.